The rain was falling so hard it sounded like 1,000 tiny fists pounding against the restaurant windows, yet that wasn't what made Michael's chest tighten as he sat alone at the small corner table. What gripped him was the look on the woman's face the moment she walked in, saw him sitting there and froze as if she had stepped into the wrong life. Her eyes widened with disappointment, so sharp it could slice through steel, and she hesitated as though she would rather run back into the storm than take another step toward him. It was the kind of moment that could destroy a man's confidence in seconds, a blind date already crumbling before the first hello. But what neither of them knew yet was that this disastrous start was about to lead both their lives somewhere neither expected, somewhere strangely familiar and deeply healing. If you believe in kindness, in forgiveness, and in second chances that arrive when life seems most unfair, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support means everything. Michael shifted uncomfortably, rubbing his thumb along the edge of the menu, wishing he had canceled the date like he'd originally planned. Ever since losing his wife 3 years earlier in a sudden medical emergency that shattered his world overnight, he had poured every ounce of himself into raising his 6-year-old daughter, Hannah. Blind dates were not part of his comfort zone, but his well-meaning coworker had insisted, said he deserved happiness, said he needed companionship again. Michael didn't know how to date anymore. He knew how to pack lunches, soothe nightmares, and pretend he wasn't lonely when Hannah was asleep. But this, sitting across from a stranger, felt like trying to breathe underwater. When the woman finally approached the table, her posture stiff, her expression carefully guarded, he noticed how cautious she looked, as if she expected disappointment. Her dark hair clung gently to her shoulders from the rain, her coat dripping faintly, her hands trembling ever so slightly. She introduced herself as Emily, although her voice cracked like someone who wanted to be anywhere else. She sat down, but her eyes barely met his, darting away as if searching for an escape route. Michael told himself not to take it personally. Maybe she was having a bad day. Maybe she felt just as nervous as he did. Maybe she didn't want to be here any more than he did. But the truth settled heavily in his chest. She clearly wished the date hadn't been arranged at all. The conversation that followed was painfully awkward. He tried asking gentle questions. Where she grew up, what she did, what she loved. But each answer felt clipped and distant, like someone handing over puzzle pieces from the wrong box. She kept staring at her phone whenever she thought he wasn't watching, biting her lip, sighing under her breath. At one point, she excused herself and stepped outside. And in those minutes, Michael sat silently, wondering if she would come back or simply disappear into the night. Part of him hoped she would vanish, not because he disliked her, but because he hated the feeling of being unwanted, of being judged without being known. He didn't think he could handle another rejection on top of the grief that still lived inside him like a permanent shadow. But she returned, shoulders hunched tighter, eyes red around the edges. Clearly, something was weighing heavily on her, something more than a failed blind date. When she sat down again, she whispered a soft apology, barely audible, as if she was fighting some inner storm. Michael nodded gently, offering a small smile, not pushing for anything more. He had learned from years of heartbreak that sometimes a person simply needed space to breathe. Then everything changed because of a single glance. When she finally lifted her eyes toward him, really looked at him, her breath caught, and her expression melted into something bewildered, emotional, almost frightened. She leaned closer, squinting as if trying to see a memory hidden beneath his tired face. Michael felt his pulse quicken. There was something strange in her gaze, something that felt like recognition. His mind tried to piece together why her face felt familiar too, but he couldn't place it. Not until she whispered, voice trembling with disbelief, that he looked just like a boy she once knew, a boy she had grown up with, played with, laughed with, a boy named Michael Raymond Carter, the same name he carried right now. The moment hit him like a wave. He hadn't heard his full middle name spoken aloud in decades. He suddenly saw flashes, summer bike rides, backyard lemonade stands, chalk drawings on cracked sidewalks, long afternoons spent with a girl named Emily Foster, who had lived 3 houses down from him until her family moved in the middle of 7th grade. He remembered her laugh, warm and bright, her kindness, her imagination, her habit of scribbling dreams on the covers of her school notebooks. He remembered how devastated he had been when she moved away. He had forgotten her face through the years, but now he saw it in front of him, shaped by adulthood, yet unmistakably the same girl he once knew. The air in the room shifted, something heavy melting into something warm and startlingly tender. Emily cupped her mouth, tears slipping down as she apologized for her earlier behavior. She confessed quietly that she had been having one of the worst days of her life. She had recently lost her job, was drowning in bills, and had reluctantly come to the date only because her friend insisted. She wasn't ready emotionally, wasn't hopeful, wasn't even sure she deserved a chance at anything good anymore. But then she realized she was sitting across from someone who had once been a part of the happiest years of her childhood. It felt like the universe had given her something she'd been missing, something she didn't know she needed. As they talked about the past, the awkwardness dissolved completely. The rain outside softened into a gentle patter, as if the sky itself was calming. They discovered they had lived in the same state for years without crossing paths. They shared stories of the hardships they'd faced. Michael told her about losing his wife, how he had changed careers to be home more for Hannah, how he sometimes felt guilty for wanting companionship again. Emily told him about her struggles with loneliness, financial instability, her fear of never finding solid ground. The weight in both their hearts eased as they realized they were no longer speaking to strangers, but reconnecting with someone who had once mattered deeply. When the dinner ended, neither wanted to leave. They walked outside together, raincoats pulled tight, hearts lighter. Michael offered her a ride home, and she accepted, hesitant but comfortable. In the car, the conversation shifted to childhood memories so vivid that both of them found themselves laughing for the first time that night. When he dropped her off, Emily hesitated before getting out, her hand lingering on the door handle. She looked at him with soft eyes and thanked him, not for the dinner, but for making her feel seen again. Over the next weeks, something gentle blossomed between them. Their meetings weren't planned dates. They were simply moments that unfolded naturally. Coffee before work, long evening walks, visits to the park where Hannah played, while Emily sat beside Michael on a bench, gradually weaving herself into their small world. Hannah liked her instantly, something that mattered more to Michael than anything else. She told him one morning over cereal that Miss Emily had the warmest smile, like the kind her mother used to have. Emily's presence soothed something buried deep in Michael. She never rushed him, never pressured him. When he talked about his grief, she listened without pity. When he talked about being a father, she admired him openly. And in return, Michael helped her piece herself back together, helped her find job leads, helped her believe in her own worth again. Their fragile connection deepened into something stronger on a cold autumn afternoon. While walking through a local farmer's market with Hannah skipping ahead, a sudden gust of wind knocked over a display booth, sending wooden crates tumbling. Michael instinctively grabbed Hannah, pulling her out of harm's way, but in the same motion he stumbled, shoulder twisting painfully. Emily rushed to help, her hands steady as she supported him. For a brief moment, fear flashed in her eyes, the fear of losing someone again. It was then Michael realized how much she cared, how deeply she had let him into her heart. The following days were filled with small acts that revealed the truth neither had dared to speak aloud yet. Emily brought him meals when his shoulder was sore. She read stories to Hannah at bedtime when he was too exhausted. She helped him fold laundry while humming a tune from their childhood. Michael found himself waking each morning with a sense of peace he had thought he would never feel again. The home that had once echoed with silence now felt lived in, warm, alive. But the past still tugged at him, specifically his fear of replacing the memory of his late wife. One evening, while standing at the kitchen sink staring out at the fading sunset, Michael felt guilt coil inside him. Emily noticed his quietness, approached gently, and waited. He told her everything. How he felt he was betraying his wife's memory, how he was afraid to love again, how he worried about confusing Hannah. Emily's eyes filled with emotion, but she reached for his hand without hesitation. She told him that love was not a single tree that could be replaced. It was a garden that could grow more than once, in more than one season. His wife would forever be part of his life. But that didn't mean he wasn't allowed new joy, new warmth, new companionship.